A motion to reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Roll call.
Shaw,
Here.
Boersma,
Yes, sorry.
Navarro,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Shimon Rogers,
Here.
Travis,
Here.
Lopez Caniva.
Here. We stand for the pledge. And if all board members.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, resolutions.
All right, hey, we have a resolution tonight, and the resolution is about board members. So just prefacing this, Illinois School Board Member Appreciation Day is November 15th, that was last week. And it's just by your association, by the state of Illinois, just to honor school board members. I always say for the public, rare position that you are in as school board members, you are, 100% volunteers. And we don't have many positions in society where you're elected as a volunteer and you do a heavy amount of work and you get ready for board meetings and you come to emergency board meetings and special board meetings simply just to represent your community and be involved in that democratic process. So we are grateful, I think, as a community that you stepped up and said, hey, I will do this. So we had a little token of Porter swag for you that, we hope you'll proudly wear. I don't know if it was Mr. Dusterhoff who said this. It identifies as you as a board member, which might mean that you're going to be spending a little bit more time in the supermarket, chatting with people when you wear it. But that also is kind of the idea. One, the idea is that you kind of identify yourself as somebody who stepped up in your community. But two, also to identify yourself to others so they know that the role that you play in our community. So first and foremost, I'd like to read this resolution and then provide each one of you with a copy of a certificate from the Illinois Association of School Boards, just out of appreciation of all of you, and I certainly appreciate you, and I'm honored that I get to serve you and work with you. Whereas, school board members are elected to sit in trust for their diverse communities, and in that capacity are charged with meeting the community's expectations and aspirations for the public education of their children. And whereas, school board members are entrusted with the guardianship and prudent expenditure of tax dollars, and they are responsible for maintaining and preserving the buildings, the grounds, and other areas of their school district that the community has put their trust into. And whereas, school board members are responsible for providing leadership that ensures a clear, shared vision of public education for their schools, that sets high standards for the education of all students, and requires the effective and efficient operation of their districts. And whereas school board members adopt public policy to give voice to that leadership and employ a superintendent to administer school board policy, and are also responsible for the regular monitoring of the school district's performance and compliance with state law and policy. And whereas school board members selflessly volunteer countless hours to public service with no compensation. And whereas school districts face constant challenges, and the strong, dedicated leadership provided by the Lockport Township High School School Board of Education has allowed student learning and success to continue. And whereas employers are supportive of their employees who serve as school board members, generously lending support and time, employers give their employees the opportunity to better serve the needs of the school districts and communities they represent through sometimes tremendous sacrifice to the employer. We have quite a few staff members who are school board members as well. Whereas decisions made by school board members directly impact the quality of life and safety in their communities, placing them as the front line of local democracy. Therefore, be it resolved by Lockport Township High School, District 205, that we proclaim November 15th as School Board Members Day as a way to honor those citizens who devote their time and energy for the successful education of our children and our future leaders. So I just ask everybody to give these board members a round of applause. They do amazing stuff. I don't believe you have to vote. Lopez Caniva on a resolution congratulating yourselves, right?
I don't think it would pass.
Right, that's because you are entirely too humble. So congratulations, thanks for your service. Appreciate you guys. I thought I had these in order, Mr. Borsman, then I got them out. Good, no, you're right in there, I just, put it in the wrong order. There you go. So, congratulations, everybody.
You can put it with your other.
Lopez Caniva.
Oh, true, yeah.
Veronica, you've got to be right here, so thank you very much. Thanks for everything you do.
No, I know, I was just gonna say that.
Michael Travis, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I believe there's been a Travis on the Board of Education since 1974. I might be wrong on the date. Congratulations, Zion, and Sandra, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McBride. It's
Of
always
course.
been an honor and pleasure to be serving here on this board. Thank you. All right, moving on to our reports, student government. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Gianna Freire, and I'm a junior. And at our last meeting, we talked about a holiday party. So last year, we did a gingerbread house making event. So this year, we were kind of talking about doing something different, just to mix it up for the kids. And it's going to be the week before finals week on a Thursday. And we're thinking we're going to decorate cookies and then turn on a holiday movie and just have it as a relaxing kind of social event before the stressful finals weeks. McKenna, do you want to add on to that?
I think we're thinking about December 14th. I think it's that Thursday. We want to use the 107 rooms because I feel like they're a good space for that. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything
No, I
else
think
about
you guys covered that very well. I
Great.
mean, it's just an opportunity for the students to have, just to have like a little, fun session together, before, the end of the semester, before all that time comes to take the final exams,
And we're thinking we're going to have maybe a sign-up sheet on the splash page, just so we could have kind of a way to check people in for that event. So, yeah.
Oh, we were also thinking of having a couple of dress-up days that week, holiday themed.
Couple what?
Holiday dress-ups.
I have a question. Is this open for all students or just student council members?
Yeah, we're gonna have. We might have the form on the student splash page or something.
I'd like to add on, so Lincoln Way North, I've heard a lot of, good thoughts with a lot of freshman, students. I've put out a poll recently and got some information from them. They love it over there. I mean, they're having a good time. They like being in person versus the online learning. Who doesn't? Having that one-on-one experience, well, not one-on-one, but you have a gathering with all of your friends, the teachers, and being in person, actually being able to do most of the classes versus, having, here's this assignment, do it, So that in-person learning was, very influential towards most of the central students moving to North. They love it over there.
I'd like to add on to what you said. I just think that the Lincoln Way North, moving the new central kids there, might be more beneficial to them because it might be better than their previous e-learning because they're in person and that they can learn hands-on with the teachers rather than online.
And then on School Links, there are many scholarships available that we don't think students are aware of, especially for seniors when the application process is kind of stressful. So I think we need to advocate for that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that it's been working out really nicely. We've been using like the pop-ups on the splash page a lot more. And like you kind of have to read those because you can't get out of it until you click the X. So just by putting like more information on there, we've been doing that a lot more lately. And I've been keeping up on the school information a lot better lately. So just like utilizing that more for the important information for students.
So us as student government, I don't know if I introduced myself, man, I'm losing my train of thought. So I'm Lee, I'm a junior. So we took a field trip, so this is an annual field trip that we take, versus with other student governments, you know, in our school district. And, you know, we just had, you know, like a meeting, a gathering to discuss about topics. And we had, you know, just a few topics that, you know, they made us a whole nice packet here. Took a bunch of notes, and it was just a very good field trip for us. We took about 20 members of student government as well as us 5. So it was a good experience. You know, there's a lot of different things that different schools do versus our student government, you know. So there's a lot of good things that they told us we can add on, or, you know, we told them that we have, you know. So it's a good experience, a good learning experience.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Any questions about anything we talked about?
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Nice job, guys. Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
All right, have a nice night. EFT report, Ms. Fishline.
Good evening. I'm happy to report that we are all trained and ready to start our interest-based bargaining. So that's good to go. But as I thought about what to say tonight, I thought I would start with a technique one of our leaders uses here to end most of our meetings. Sorry. One last word. However, in the month that has just taken place, it's hard to choose just one. I didn't know if it should be amazed, proud, strong, anchor, together, but the one I'm going with is thankful. First, we are thankful for Scott Tingley and the entire neighboring District 210 for working with us. Without them, none of this would have been possible. To you, the school board, we're thankful for everything, but especially your extra time, work, and dedication that you put in for our students. To our administration, to say we're thankful is an understatement. What you have done in 2 weeks' time is record-breaking and admirable. I told myself I wasn't going to get emotional. You always had the staff and students and safety first. So the union is thankful for your partnership and line of communication through these times. To our building, grounds, and entire maintenance staff, you deserve a standing ovation. You're the main reason we can be thankful to be where we are today because of your time and your work. To Dave and your entire transportation team, watching that plan come to life this past week was remarkable. To our office professionals that kept things rolling when meeting after meeting was taking place, we are thankful for you. To our teachers and paraprofessionals, you have defined what it means to be a Porter. Thank you. But as we approach this Thanksgiving weekend, the last group I am truly thankful for are all of the families of everyone that I mentioned above. You all have given hours and hours of extra time to this district over the past few weeks to get us to this point, and that would not have been able to happen without their support. So tonight, I'll end with what the union is most thankful for, and that is that we are grateful to be a Porter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fishline, for those kind words. It's really, it brings a lot to us. It means a lot. All right. The IASB Governing Board Report, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm gonna start with people telling about something you learned or what you enjoyed about at the conference, and then I'm gonna end with the delegate.
Yes, okay.
So I'm gonna start here, Tori.
For me, we love Phil Boyd. Chelsea and I have both seen Phil Boyd before at school, and he's become kind of a staple of the leadership team at school. We love him, and he was great. It was really important for us to see how other school board members, student school board members, and their districts kind of act around student members. And for us, for me personally, interesting things that I learned is that other school boards aren't open to student board members, and I'm really thankful that we have the opportunity that we do, because there was students there that are trying to get their boards on board with student board members, and they just weren't receptive, and it's sad to see, but we're really thankful for our opportunity. And I think my favorite part was when we had a breakout session with just student board members. We talked about how to bring different challenging topics to the table, and it was important for me.
Yes, I couldn't agree with what Tori said more. I really appreciated just being in that space and being able to connect with other board members, especially student board members. But one thing I really want to highlight is the amazing conference meeting that we had on the second day, which Dr. McBride.
So true. We're so proud of you guys.
Dr. Christopher, Ms. LaCroix led, and I really got to connect with Ms. Gibson, and I want to take this time to really talk about how it's important to have these conversations around equity, and you guys did a really amazing job on talking about how the administration took a lot of measures to making sure our administration is knowledgeable on different cultures and different perspectives. So I really appreciated that. But I also want to take time to say that I think that Ms. Gibson should be here talking with us, making sure that we can hear her voice, because her voice was so impactful towards me. And I think that we could really gain some knowledge from some of the things that she says, not only just on the administrative aspect, but also for the student aspect. So having her talk to some students at the school would definitely be beneficial as well. But yes, I really appreciated this weekend, and I can't wait to see what is going to happen for upcoming years.
Okay.
Well, I can say I really enjoyed Phil also. I like the way he got everybody involved. Everybody, each person in the room, we were involved, engaged. And I like the one thing he talked about, when you know, about listening to someone. Sometimes they don't really want you to solve their problems. He was talking about how sometimes you need to be a good listener. But sometimes just being a good listener and asking some questions instead of trying to solve it, you might stir them in a way of, seeing different things, how they can solve it themselves. So I really enjoyed him. Like I said, I really like to clap one time. Clap. I enjoyed the whole conference also.
I think for me, it's just about relearning some of the items I've already learned. I know I tend to speak fast sometimes, and I tend to put in a lot of information. So just one of the sessions that I went to was about how to be able to just make your words more meaningful, being able to talk more with less, being able to sometimes just gesturing big, not making these small gestures that I tend to do with my hands, just learning how to be able to, talk to people. I think sometimes I overthink things when it comes to communicating, and I try to put in as much information as possible. I can see a lot of people nodding their heads but yeah, it's stuff like that, and it just, let me kind of, relearn. Sometimes it's not all about just learning new information. It's about getting back in, retaining information that you once knew, and then being able to reapply it.
So I was in the Real World Board seminar, and all I can say is we heard everybody else in the Phil Boyd. So I was a little jealous. So we didn't have that, but it was a good seminar, basically talking about some very unique scenarios with board members. So I'm thankful that we don't have some of those problems. So you learn about how to deal with them and discuss them. That was pretty interesting. And also the guest speaker, they were phenomenal. So that was probably the biggest highlight for me, so.
I was in the Phil Boyd thing with everybody as well, so I won't talk about that too much, but being able to listen to the panel of people who've been doing this for a while, having students on their board, and just how amplifying student voice has also brought board members to a good place where they actually understand what is happening in the school and why things are happening in the school, so that was impactful for me. I also loved Tara I. Trent, I know the
Yes.
ladies got to see her too.
Yes.
She was fantastic, and it just made me leave feeling great. And then seeing one of our attorneys present, Zaria Uday, I mean, just seeing them in that element and talking about legal matters was great.
Yes, like I said,
Did we skip Ann?
Okay, yes, I also, attended the Phil Boyd, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I've never gone to any of this, so this was the first time for me meeting him and being in this interactive group. But it was very, very hopeful, and yes, in that second session where we talked to those other, school board members, and that was the same, I believe those were the same school board members that that Dr. McBride and I attended where they had the school board. And I said, yes, that's what we want. Like last year, we said, we came out of that session and we said, yes, let's get rolling on this, because we really did. I also, yes, the guest speaker was phenomenal, Ms. Del Ponte and Ms. Osei, we had an opportunity then afterwards to not only get her book, but we also took a picture with her. Yes, so yes, we took a picture with her, so she was very impressed. But, and then of course I also I skipped your session, Dr. McBride, because I wanted to go to this economics and policy in Springfield where there were two state representatives talking of what's happening down there, the school-based funding, they did say they're still gonna continue the $350 million, for that. They don't want to have it reduced, but they would like to see it increased, and then of course, they were talking about getting additional revenue into the state of Illinois, and they were talking about maybe an increase in their sales tax or an increase in the state income tax, which, that's gonna be very hard. But I think at this point, the governors, they did say that the governor's main concern right now is the migration, that's into the city of Chicago and around surrounding areas right now. So that's his main concern right now. And then I attended the President's Roundtable. Of course, in every session that I've gone, when people, they see your tag there, Lockport, oh, yeah, you're the school that the roof fell down. No. or the ceiling fell. No, it wasn't the roof, it was the ceiling. But it was amazing to see that even some rural schools, they've heard about this, and I felt like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be known as the school where the ceiling or the roof fell in. But yes, they were very impressed with everything that we've done, as far as getting everything on board with Lincoln Way North. But yes, it was, then I went to the President's Roundtable on Saturday afternoon, but yes, it was great discussion, great discussion. And of course, the other one that I also went through was leading through difficult times. That was another session that I went to, and that was very interesting because, we're so blessed. We really are. We are in a much better spot, than other school districts are, and I'm very thankful to Dr. McBride, to our whole administration. Thank you. All right, that was it.
Well, I guess it's on me.
Yeah.
I also went to the Phil Boyd class. And like everybody else said, it's interesting that we actually give our students a voice. It was to listen to the students' voice, where a lot of the other school districts only had them as advisors, like on the panel. So, because I asked a question and they said, oh no, we just meet with the superintendent and that's it. I said, well, do they listen to your opinion? And one student said, no.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I really enjoyed it. Phil Boyd is always full of energy and stuff. And again, I got that listening, listen to what people say, okay? Instead of always trying to solve other people's problems. Okay. Then I went to the keynote speakers too. Those were good, so Trenda, was the last name Wells, whatever the last name was, she was awesome because.
The one on Sunday?
Was it the one on Sunday or
No,
Saturday
the-
morning?
The opening session.
Oh, the one, okay.
She talked about never giving up.
Mm-hmm.
How as a child she wanted to go to school, but she couldn't. And she was trying to learn, and then her father found out about it, and he took her out of school and married her off.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time she was 18, I think she had 3 or 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
But she always wanted to learn,
Yes.
you know. So she did get in with a lady that helped her go to school. And to this day, she has her PhD,
Yes.
and she goes around the country. But she said that was the power of never giving up on your dreams.
That's right.
And I like the part where she said her mother, I think it was her mother, either that or her grandmother said, take your dreams, write them down, and plant them.
You bury them.
Bury
Yes.
them. You know, bury them and they will grow.
That's right.
And she said they did. And many years later, she went back and found this tin
Mm-hmm.
with her dreams in it, her goals.
Yes.
So,
Yes, that was very impressive.
okay. Then I went to the delegate
Mm-hmm.
session. Okay. There were 417 delegates throughout the state in attendance. We voted for a new president and a new vice president.
Okay.
It's interesting, I didn't notice it's interesting the politics in that and what they do. So, some of you know Liz Campbell. She was not on the agenda we received for the officers' election, but she, like you would normally say, nominate somebody from the floor. She actually nominated herself from the floor. But the key thing about that is you need to know that if you want to do that, you had to file something back in August. That's a little piece they don't tell you. You can't just come up and say, I want to nominate myself
Yeah.
for secretary or whatever. So there's a lot of little rules that I found out over time that the state have that they don't tell you, you know. I don't know if it's written somewhere, but, you know, they don't tell you those little rules. But she was able to run, so she got 100-some votes, so I thought that was good. So, yeah. And then everything that was recommended was voted on. Yeah. The only one thing that they did a little politicking, I call it, is that there was one resolution that had been recommended for everybody to vote down. Well, some people decided, so that means it was voted down, they weren't gonna vote on it. So they decided they wanted it to be voted on. They took it out of the consent agenda, and they wanted it to be voted on. So someone had to, I think they called it, I think it's file appeal or revoke appeal on it, and they did it. But when you do that, what you should do is come up and, you know, say why you feel that it should be done. It's interesting to me is the people that took it out of, you know, the consent agenda didn't try to support it, and no one challenged it. So, in essence, it got voted down. It didn't get appealed. So, that's the basis of it. So.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to know some of that, they did give us an annual report. If you want to see that, I have it, you know. So.
Can I just say, I really hope they do a better job of the badges that you guys have, the student board members have compared to like the regular one. Because the amount of times I got confused of being a student board member in that conference was amazing. There was one time where, and the reason why I know you guys have breakout groups is because when I was walking around, they asked me, oh, do you need a number for your breakout group? And I said, thank you, but I'm not a student board member. And I took 4 steps, and then the person who's, I guess, like, directing the student board members was like, if you need a breakout number, talk to the people over there. And I had to say thank you, but I'm not a student board member.
But did you have your badge on?
I did. People, the badges are very similar. There's only like their badges compared to ours. There's a very small text that
Okay,
says
I didn't
student
realize
board
that.
member
Okay.
compared to regular one.
Okay.
So.
I didn't notice it, but anyway.
right, thank you everyone for sharing your experiences, especially for, Dr. Shimon Rogers and for our students for being the first to be going there, to the first conference. It's nice. Okay. All right, foundation report, Ms. Angela Ado.
Say it off you want.
Come on in.
Yeah, why don't you come on in for this one? And we'll, maybe streamline some of the others, but I know you've got some exciting news and
okay.
be sure to share.
Nice. Good evening. I know you have the report in front of you, but when I submitted it, I didn't have a couple pieces of information that I thought I would share. When the ceiling fell and, things were, up in arms and people were very concerned about our freshmen, the foundation actually met and they decided they wanted to do something positive. So they did a couple of things. One was a small group of foundation members went over to Lincoln Way North to help decorate and create like kind of a porterized version of the place that they would be to have like that welcome home feeling. And then we also purchased 1,100 t-shirts that said Porter Pivot Class of 2027, so that each and every student and staff member would have a t-shirt to kind of memorialize and kind of bring some, this is gonna be a part of their history, so like a positive spin on what they were a part of. And it was great, actually. I went over to Lincoln Way North on Friday to take some pictures to see all the kids wearing their Porter Pride shirts, that they were the only ones that get to have those. So that's really great. And I did email my board, I think on Friday, kind of to say that when you do good comes back to you. So those shirts were, there were 1,100 shirts, $6 or $7 a shirt. So they really did a nice investment on that. By the end of the day on Friday, we had already had enough donations from our community in scholarship and in just offerings to pay for those. So
nice.
Right.
Nice.
So that's, if you ever wonder what our community's like, that's what our community's like. That's it for me. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
All right, legislative report, Dr. McBride.
Not too terribly much. The veto session ended with sort of not really too much action. Nothing was, none of the governor's vetoes were overridden. Couple things that were significant. Something called the Invest in Kids Act was sunsetted. That was an act, I think enacted in 2017. It was basically an act that allowed at private schools people to make donations, in essence, as an offset to tuition and enable scholarships. So that actually sunsetted. The veto on kosher and halal foods, you might remember the governor vetoed a bill that would require all schools to offer kosher and halal foods, but upon further investigation saw that as more of a local decision. The governor felt that that was a local school board decision. He vetoed that, and the veto was not overridden. And then also the state of Illinois for a number of years had set a school choice program that's never really kind of state, kind of focused more on charter schools than on school choice, and so that also was a sunset. So probably the most important thing I think that we're following is that we're following some action on the Higher Learning Committee that is looking at requirements for dual credit. You know that we've talked, there's many indicators for advanced placement. For example, U.S. News and World Report, when they rank schools, they only rank it on advanced placement. And you've recognized that dual credit, earning credits at JJC, and in courses that earn credit from college courses all the way to Wilco courses, like Ms. Del Ponte is enrolled in a dual credit class. You've found equal weight on both of those. And so very important for us to find out what's going to happen with the requirements in the state for one of our teachers to be a dual credit teacher. We believe on the superintendent side there should be one sort of standard throughout all junior colleges. Higher Learning is making a recommendation that each individual junior college gets to set their requirements. And we think that that could really have a negative actual impact on the number of students, number of teachers qualified to teach dual credit, and then ultimately the number of students who can access dual credit. So that junior college transcript just as important, and maybe in some ways more important, because the state of Illinois, dual credit, Joliet Junior College credit has to go to every public university. University of Illinois, Southern, Eastern, Western, Illinois State has to accept that credit. Whereas with advanced placement, there's more discretion on whether to accept a credit or not. That's the legislative report.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public comment, follow-up, October 16th.
Okay, October 16th, we had two individuals who spoke at public comment, Tammy Hayes and John O'Lear. Both spoke about what you've been talking about. You've had 3 board meetings and 3 special sessions of different types where you've talked about the tax levy. Ms. Hayes shared her concern about higher taxes. To respond, I just wanted to kind of look into some of the things that she brought up. So what I did is I sent an email. One interesting thing for you, Ms. Hayes did mention out-migration in Illinois, but you might remember really an interesting fact when you did a demographic projection. Jerome McKibben was really surprised that there has been out-migration in parts of Illinois, but not in this school district. Very interesting. You know, he was really struck by that when he did our report, that he just didn't see that kind of out-migration in our school district. So to kind of understand a little bit of the dynamic that Ms. Hayes brought up, what I did is, all of our tax records are public records, right? They're publicly searchable. So what I did verify is something that Mrs. Hayes said, that her property and her dwelling have increased by 24%. That's both the assessed value and the appraised value. And that's one of the most important drivers in terms of how anybody who's a property owner, the value of your home drives the amount that you're taxed. So that is the case, and then it's a double-edged sword, right? We all like our value of our home to go up. If we resell it, the only time I'm aware in my own personal case where the value of my home dropped was in the Great Recession. Good to have lower taxes that year, but if I had to resell my house, I would have lost money, on that sale. So did go up, the value of the property and dwelling went up by 24%. In that same period of time, 2018 until now, taxes went up by 6%. So it implies kind of a relationship, right? Value up by 24%, taxes up by 6%, and kind of describes some of the dynamics that we deal, both you as a board and then, many of us as individual property owners. Oftentimes in communities with strong schools, strong park districts, strong police, things like that, our value of our home increases, creating a tax burden on us. But in this particular case, the percent increase of taxes wasn't at the same level, right? Wasn't a 24% increase in taxes. So it's never a one-for-one. And then Mr. O'Lear, unfortunately, we had a lot of really good email back and forth with Mr. O'Lear, which was to go out to some of his rental properties, and if appropriate, he knows his tenants, kind of talk to his tenants a little bit. And we were just on the cusp of scheduling something. We had a day, and then something else happened, at Central Campus, and I feel badly that I haven't gotten back to him. Literally November 2nd was the day we were looking at. It just didn't work out. So I'm going to get back with him and hopefully have a good report for you next month.
Thank you. All right, public comments. At each regular open meeting, members of the public and district employees may address the school board during the public comment section of the agenda. Individuals appearing before the board are expected to respectfully follow the guidelines of Policy 2:230 and Policy 8:30 available upon sign-in. Public comments are important to the board. However, it is customary not to respond on issues until time has been taken to gather information and discuss all options. Lack of action or response at the time of comment does not imply lack of interest in issues brought to the board. Thank you. First, we have a Miss Audrey Manley. Miss Manley? It's yours.
Yeah, usually up here.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Audrey Manley, and I'm probably the historian of the district. My first experience with Lockport Central was in 1963. My husband taught here. Later, my 4 children went to school here. And even later than that, I was on the school board for 8 years. I'm here tonight to commend the school board and the administration for moving forward with the financing of Central School. As the history I've seen in the last almost 60 years, Michael, you too, I was on the school board with his dad, has been, the people of this community have a real caring for this, for Central. They haven't always wanted to maybe spend the money to keep it up. I think that's been our only concern, but now is the time. Now is the time. At the polls and in the community, people have made it clear that they love Central and want to keep Central. And so now is the time for those people to come forward and support you in whatever you're going to do. So call on me. I can give you the history of the district, and I'll be happy to speak for it wherever you want me to. And John and Carrie were my students when I taught at St. Francis. I'm proud of them. Okay.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Next we have Miss Annie Hayes. She really shines.
Good evening, board, staff, public. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all again. I was here a few times recently and spoke about taxes, as you just heard. The levy, percentages, and the all-over costs everywhere going up. First, I'd like to mention that raising property values is always touted as this great big bonus, right? So a good return on your investment, they claim. What it actually equates to is higher homeowners insurance. It also can literally price some people out of their homes. And when you sell that house, and yeah, it sells for a little bit higher, guess what your next house costs? More than it's worth too. In October, at my public comment where I had mentioned my percentage and how it had gone up, I'm gonna make a quick clarification for you. The default assessment increase in Homer Glen, where I live, was 7.10%. However, my 55-year-old home, its increase was 24%. The assessment was increased 24%. And with that, as you've just heard, Dr. McBride was happy enough to go into my personal taxes and look at them for, as he said in his email, to better understand the situation. So here, I'll be handing you all a copy of your personal taxes and your assessments and the possibilities and potential increases that you could see with these tax levies and tax raises. So, one more second here and then I'll be able to, you can follow along. Page 1 is Luann Johnson. She's looking at $239, a raise of $239 in your taxes. Travis, $218, just for District 205, so you're clear. We are just looking at the increases for 205. Shaw, $327. Lopez, $334. Boersma, $176. Rogers, $364. Navarra, $366. Now, I would like to I think it's important to remember who you're raising taxes on. It's not just yourself. It's your entire community. It's your retired neighbors. It's your new parent neighbors. It's, new homeowners. These are the people, including the business owners. These are the people you're raising your taxes on. It's also important for you to remember you must live in this district to be on this board. Now, my personal taxes are estimated to go up $1,400 to $1,800. $600 to $850 just for my grade school district. And 205's portion, $375 to $525. Now, the second to last page you'll see here is Miss Stephanie Croy's taxes, because it's public information, so why not? Now, her particular taxes have gone up 28% since she's owned her home, but her home value's only gone up 21%. So I guess they don't equal each other. Your home value does not equal higher taxes. Just because your taxes are high does not mean the value of your home is going up. Lastly, you'll see this page here. This home in Wheaton has seen $600 increase in taxes in 10 years' time. $600. This particular home in Wheaton, their district has a 20% higher proficiency rate than LTHS. Something to think about when you're paying your taxes and where you guys are going to vote to raise your own taxes. Anywhere from $239 to $375, I think was the second highest, or that might be mine, or $375. So I think that you really need to think about your own pocketbooks when you make these decisions. In closing, I'm going to say that a few months ago, a speaker talked about that we have claimed, the board has claimed, the budgets have claimed, the superintendent has claimed that you've saved up for repairs and you're taxing us for this year's projects. Rebate the $4.6 million, which can be accomplished using the Illinois Fiscal Responsibility Law. If you need help, look up Union School District 81 in New Lenox, and it will not negatively impact future levies. These prices would go down a third if you vote to abate the referendum, or the levy, pardon me.
Next, we have a Mr. Timothy Ross.
Good evening. I live at 10th Street near Central Campus. As time has gone on, our community has continued to evolve. We have seen new housing, a large increase in business to our area, new residents who perhaps have not been made aware of the school's facility needs history, and a complete revitalization of the downtown Lockport has happened as well. It was not all that long ago that a few blocks worth of historical buildings served no purpose and were in near ruins. And it's a great sight to see and a positive impact on our community. Of course, just like anything else, I hope that will continue to improve. One aspect of our community that has not made much progress over the course of the last 20 years or so has been Central Campus. While I was a student almost 20 years ago, the first referendums began. You may recall the crowded hallway videos or the interior tour of the life safety concerns at Central Campus. Building Bridges was a committee that was created by community members to support the referendum, which asked for a new campus to be built on Cedar Road. Multiple variations of this went in front of the community 6 separate times. Alterations to the plan were made as well. 2-and-2 concept, a standalone 4-year high school, and then most recently in 2011, a scaled-back school that still totaled over $100 million. Under all these scenarios, Central Campus was not intended to continue as a school facility. Over the last 20 years and beyond, the district has worked within its budget to provide numerous upkeep measures to the schools and has listened to the taxpayers' votes from years prior to not build a new campus and has continued to utilize Central Campus. Anyone who drives past, takes part in the district-led tours, or reads the monthly maintenance report can see all the exceptional work and numerous projects that happen at East and Central Campus each year. Like any aging structure, there comes a time when work beyond the scope of your yearly budget must take place. These issues have not gone away magically with time. Nearly 2 years ago, the district began tours of Central Campus with the community, inviting them into the school to show them the challenges and also some of the great potential that Central Campus has. Within that same period of time, a community advisory panel was also formed. I had the pleasure of serving with about 20 other individuals from our communities. While on the Citizens Advisory Committee, we toured the building in depth, formed groups, and discussed the current needs of specific spaces and what those spaces could look like with renovation and reduction in mechanical spaces. We discussed the use of spaces and what it looks like now compared to maybe what it looked like in 1956 when the last addition and major updates of the building opened. The conversations also involved current students of Central Campus, former students, faculty, administration, board members, DLA architects, The general consensus of all of us was that Central Campus should continue as a school for years to come. Central is in need of an overhaul to bring it up to par with today's school environment. Updating to bring the building to be safe and accessible for all is of utmost importance. We noted that the geographic location of Central Campus is the exact center of the district, making it available to all of our students in the communities it serves. It's very close to the newly renovated athletic facilities and East Campus. The Freshman Center was an important program that all wanted to see left intact. Central is centralized to the many businesses that work with our CCC program for community work and outreach. The cost of new construction would be considerably higher than the renovation of Central. And finally, all felt that the nostalgic appeal of Central was something that should be celebrated in the community and school day. The committee went on with the same group to tour several other vintage school buildings that had been renovated and preserved. Downers Grove North and Glenbard West High Schools, and we had the unique chance to see the approach that their school boards and community had taken. We were all very impressed, and I think everyone could not help but picture Central in a similar state. What we saw could be an awesome opportunity for this district. Having said all this, the events of the last few weeks have sort of expedited this great need now. The catastrophic failure has shown us that old buildings require extensive renovations and require a community to rally behind to support the necessary changes that need to be made. A project of this size and scope cannot possibly be all up to one school. Over the course of the next few weeks and months, I hope that everyone begins to really think hard about what the foundation of any community is. This, after all, has always been a community decision. And we also need to begin to forge the path forward for many Porters to come. This problem will continue if we choose not to act now. Choosing to build a new now would not put students in a new building until most likely 2026 or beyond, and would also require a referendum double the size of what this potential referendum question will ask for Central. Let's make the right choice and the most sensible choice in a time that never seems to be the right one to ask for additional funding, but is out of complete necessity at this point. Thank you for your time. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Next, we have a Jay Ponsolino.
Good evening, Board. It's been a while since I spoke. It's tax levy time, so that's why I'm back. After this Board's October 16th Board meeting to discuss funding your budget, I received a number of calls and emails from residents concerned about the fiduciary responsibility of this Board and the creative financing you have provided for yet another tax levy increase. Residents whose job it is to work with budgets and numbers reached out to this Board and felt their comments were wasted on a number of blind and deaf ears. One resident went so far as to take the time to produce and submit graphs that factually demonstrated how you can raise the levy the amount you want while giving far more relief, $4.6 million, to the taxpayers than what was presented by Mrs. Croy on 10/16/23. I'm not sure if she has reviewed the statute another district has utilized to give back more money, and I'll refer to that below. While you've concentrated the majority of your budget discussions on not wanting the fund balances to decline over time, you have not asked for or provided taxpayers with up-to-date or current projections to review approving your budget. You tentatively approved your budget in July and then approved a final version in September. Your projections included the treasurer's reports for each budget meeting showing a $2 million decline in fund balances from June 2023 to June 2028. A month after you approved the budget at the 10/16/23 meeting, you received updated projections showing fund balances increasing $6 million by June 2028, an $8 million turnaround. Why wouldn't you want to do your due diligence and demand to see the latest projections for the budget you are asking to be approved? I love that one resident went so far as to point out fact versus fiction with numbers. They explained the big unknown in determining how much the levy is with newly assessed properties. We've heard Mr. McBride and his staff state, if you don't levy the maximum amount every year, any new houses that are assessed as vacant lots last year won't pay any more taxes to the districts. Residents in the Board can refer to the video in the minutes of the October 2nd, 2023 Finance Facilities Committee, where Mr. McBride reiterated that the levy should make sure that new property owners pay their fair share. Mr. McBride's fabricated version or misunderstanding between the tax levy and how having new homeowners not paying their fair share is not how a tax levy works. The facts are, they're out there for everyone to look up. This can be fact-checked simply by going onto the county website with the Will County Clerk's Office. Now, I'm gonna read to you the numbers that increased and decreased from the 2021 levy, and what was collected in 2022, and the 2022 levy that was collected in 2023. Homer Glen, $1,500,464.63. It had a decrease of $36.48. Homer Township was $1,187,061.71. They had a decrease of $2,698. Homer Township Road District, $1,376,774.78. They decreased $374,245.68. Homer Consolidated 33C. They collected $52,242,933.42. They had an increase of $3,125,516.70. Lockport Township 205. Collected $56,106,115.60. A $3,210,806.88 increase. The Village of Homer Glen, Homer Township, and Road District all kept their levy the same or they reduced it, while the school districts all increased their levies. All these taxing bodies are bound by the same PTELL calculation in determining their maximum levy. However, some governing bodies actually did not request the maximum of the taxpayers. And guess what? They didn't jeopardize their residents or have any change in services. It's a fact, not fiction. And as you see, this parcel tax increases, that the taxes that were paid to the village, the township, the school districts all increased over 925%. If Mr. McBride was correct, the taxes to the village, the township, and the road district would have remained the same or decreased because those districts did not increase their levies.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
It appears that the new properties pay their fair share, regardless if the taxing district raises their levy or not. I'm going to refer everyone to look at something that's been done over in New Lenox, since I'm short on time. And I'm going to strongly suggest that you all read very carefully and research the fiscal responsibility law. It's ILCS 35. It's called the Property Tax Code. And so I think if you can do what other nearby schools are doing, you can also save and give rebates to the taxpayers like they have. Thank you.
Moving on then to our notices of communications, we have no communications.
We do have one.
Oh, we do have one?
Yes.
Oh, okay, it was okay, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So there was a letter sent out to the Board of Education, Lockport Township High School Board of Education from Carrie Green. And it reads, "Thank you all for your support and the kind gestures extended to me and my family. Losing my sister has been very difficult, but being surrounded by my Porter family has brought great comfort. Your thoughtfulness and sincere kindness has been greatly appreciated."
Thank you. All right. And then Freedom of Information requests, we have 4 of them there, board packet. Moving on to our approval items. We just need a motion for the open session meeting minutes of October 16th. So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Straw and seconded by Mr. Travis. Are there any questions? I believe, Mr. Borsman, you were absent on that basis. No questions? All right, roll call.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Navarro,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Boersma, Simone Rogers,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes from the October 16, 2023 regular board meeting? So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shaw, second by Mr. Travis. Are there any questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Navarro,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Boersma,
Abstain.
Simone Rogers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Shaw,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, moving on to the approval of let's see, November 2nd, 2023, special board meeting, I believe, Ms. Shimon, Dr. Shimon Rogers, you were absent on that day, so. All right, just need a motion.
Make that motion.
Second. It's been motioned by Mr. Travis and second by Dr. Shaw. Are there any questions? Roll call.
Travis,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Abstain.
Johnson,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarra,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. Need the approval of the closed session meeting minutes of November 2nd, 2023. I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been motioned by Ms. Lopez Caniva, second by Mr. Travis. Roll call.
Boersma,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarra,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers.
Abstain.
All right, now we need the
Lopez
approval.
Caniva.
Yes, yes. Approval of the meeting minutes of November 7th, 2023 emergency board meeting.
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Any questions? Roll call.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Navarra,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. Okay, we get into a treasurer's report. And we have Ms. Floyd.
We also had some travel expenses.
Oh, we do?
That we had to approve as well.
Oh, okay.
Just above the, I think it's the $250 limit.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, okay.
And I just have the motion.
I move to approve the travel expenses.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Right. Roll call.
Shaw,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Navarra,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, now treasurer's report.
And just to maybe streamline things, because we have quite a bit to discuss with, it, I don't know if anybody has any questions for Stephanie, if we want to come up. It's pretty, pretty typical monthly report. Some of the deeper financial things tonight we might get into, but we certainly can, have Mrs. Croy come on up if you have some questions. If there's anything in there that you have a question about. And, just for your reference, one thing that we always do is there is always sitting here, the analytics on the 5-year, that's a standard. All the financial forecasting that we do, that's a link. It kind of shows you the financial modeling that PMA Financials do for us, so just kind of component.
Okay.
I move to approve the financial report.
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Mr. Travis. All right, roll call.
Johnson,
Yes.
Navarra,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Boersma, Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, superintendent report.
All right, I will probably now have Mr. Eric Sickbird come up, and then also Stephanie Croy come up as well. And just to kind of conceptualize, we have a number of things later in the agenda that are all approval items. And what I thought as we kind of worked and we talked about this agenda, maybe localizing a number of issues here for discussion before the approval. Of course, we can absolutely have more discussion, no need to kind of take care of all that, but kind of put it all together in one coherent package, because there are a couple of different components that are going on. And in some ways, this is a pivot away from Lincoln Way North to some of the central issues that we have. I would echo what Mrs. Kishline said, a number of things. just, there's so much thanks, there's so much gratitude. Really, it's almost incomprehensible that you voted on November 7th and we were able to put so many things in place, and what a partnership. I mean, I think that's an amazing story, is two districts partnering with each other. And really, if you thought about every person involved, every single person went the extra mile. You know, up until you approving an intergovernmental agreement tonight with Lincoln Way District 210, really, all of their staff has done the work that they've put in almost pro bono, right? Obviously, we're gonna have a financial transaction with them for use of that space, their school board, their administration, their custodial staff, and then same with us. From bus drivers to custodians to educational support professionals to teachers to school counselors. I also just have to say, none of this is possible without working with our union. And I really appreciate that we have a union that asks tough questions, expects clear answers, really wants communication, does its part to advocate for its staff, but is also a solid partner so that we can work together and be a good steward of what we're trying to do as a district. You know, one of my favorite movies, Remember the Titans, there's a line in there, attitude reflects leadership. There's nothing better than your union president who just on the first couple of days of busing has a yellow vest on, is just out there in the cold helping kids, you know, get used to the transport center called East Campus. You know, Mrs. Kishline, nobody told her to do that. She just put that yellow vest on and got at it. So I deeply, deeply appreciate that. Maybe before we get in, Dr. Green, I don't want to put you on the spot. You want to maybe stand in any words about your journey to Lincoln Way North before we dive into Central?
Sure. You know, it was truly amazing last week. You know, rough week, and thank you all personally for helping me through that time with my family. But watching my staff last Tuesday, you know, I called a all-staff meeting at 7:30 in the morning and basically explained, you know, we have a couple hours, pack it up, let's get over to North and do our best that we possibly can to welcome, you know, all of our students on Wednesday. And what we were able to accomplish, and just the energy, the commitment. You know, our student leadership kids were there, our maintenance and custodial staff. Lincoln Way was phenomenal, and their staff and their superintendent coming over. But what we were able to accomplish, and then seeing the kids come through the door, and just the excitement that they had to be back in person, and the gratitude that our students actually showed us being over there. So it has been remarkable what we were able to get done, and it has been great to see our kids in person. And this was a team effort. It's not just all about Central, it's about East Campus too, because they really have helped to make sure that our kids are getting here, we're getting them on the bus, getting them over, getting them back, and with as least disruption as possible to our families, to our co-curriculars, and to the community. But it has been nothing short of amazing. So I appreciate all the support from all of you and our families and the community on helping to make this possible. You know, we feel very blessed and lucky that we found a space and facility, because in our research, you know, this was the best case scenario for us. And so we're grateful that we are not disrupting, you know, the East Campus daily function, and that we're able to have our kids in person. So I appreciate all the support and all the hard work of, you know, our teaching staff, our custodial staff, and everyone's understanding what we've been going through. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And just a couple other special shout outs. Something that doesn't always get noticed, we're doing quite a bit of work with the city of Lockport Police, and the Will County Sheriff. And all of that work is to make sure that we have a proper school resource officer in unincorporated Frankfort. There's some legal layers and agreements that have to be signed involving the state's attorney, but we've gotten help from both, and going to eventually get to a more permanent, you know, for our stay situation. But just appreciate them jumping in, the Frankfort Fire Department helping us. And then also, none of this would be possible without Dr. Lisa Caporelli-Ruff and Dr. John Sparlin, who both lead the, as superintendent and deputy superintendent, the Will County Regional Office of Education. They do a lot of the permitting, a lot of the inspecting. So just so many people came alongside us to make this happen. Incredible. But I would suppose to the board that, you know, two issues, central, one part of my report, and then the tax levy, which we've already heard, you know, quite a bit about. And there's an essential question we've been asking really now for 2 years. We asked in the mailer, the beginning of this fall. Thank you very much to our public relations department. We put it out in a video last week. I think the question before you is, should Lockport Central Campus remain as a school? And I really emphasize that because it can remain as many things, but should it remain as a school, a place that children and teachers conduct education? So thought of going through a few things. One, just sharing, we have hot off the presses, not the final report from WJE, and I might reference it with Mr. Sickbird, just about a half hour before we started closed session, had a new finished map of WJE's analysis of all the ceilings. So maybe working through, first and foremost, where are we at with that? And what decisions are in front of you just with that presentation? You know, for any member of the public, for yourself, we have a portion, a component of the ceiling here over on the table that kind of gives you an idea of the 1928 type of plaster construction that lived out its life. It's heavy plaster in wire mesh, and that wire mesh was then affixed to wooden rafters by nails. And, you know, if you want to do feats of strength, we can lift that up, you know, and you realize that that's a construction element of our classrooms. It's not a decorative element of our classrooms. The only thing that reminds me as a lifelong Cubs fan is when there was concrete falling from the overhang of Wrigley Field, and that had to get fixed. So what's going on there? You have later a ballot question, and examining that ballot question, what it asks of the community, what you ask of the community, and then also just, you know, we've spent a lot of time, maybe recapitulated, of renovation, $85 million proposal versus new construction. You know, Mr. Sickbird and I talked about just a freshman center. And I'll let him talk in detail about $145 million to about $150 million. A new complete high school, about $180 million to $200 million, and we've already heard concern about tax burden. New construction is the heaviest tax burden that you could put on the community. Those two new buildings would go $500, almost to $800, $900 per year increase to fund a piece of new construction. That, you know, as one of the public speakers mentioned, won't be ready, you know, shovel ready for years, even if, you know, we could decide that you would build it. So maybe walk through all of those components before we talk about the annual tax levy. Why don't I turn it over to you, Mr. Sickbird, just where we're at. I'm gonna, with your permission, maybe pull up what you emailed me earlier today, just the new components where we're at here.
Okay, so we did get the final risk assessment map from WJE. Again, as Dr. McBride mentioned, we are still waiting on the final report. That's going to probably take quite a bit of time, just because if you can imagine the legalese and all the conversation that they have to develop to put it into the final report. That's not to say that we can act on the information that we're receiving on this risk assessment plan. Not a lot of surprises. We found some things that were expected and other things that were actually good, but in general, it wasn't a big surprise. So while you're taking a look at that here, again, going back to that risk assessment, we had dark green, we had a light green, and then we had a light orange and a darker orange, and then we had a red. Each one is a higher risk. Going from dark green is the lowest risk up to the red, which is the highest risk. From this plan, as you can see, the lower plan, pretty much in the lower level, all those ceilings were pretty are adequate and no medium to high risk in that area. So that was fairly clear. Once we get into the second or the first floor plan, you start seeing some of that darker orange, and that's based on a system that they used to create that plaster ceiling. Those are all in the orange. They are all plaster ceilings, and basically the lath that they used to develop that plaster ceiling is what is causing them to call it a medium to high. And in those particular areas, it's really not the plaster that we saw in the high-risk area. That was, thank goodness, only about 3 to 4% of the entire school was the high risk. We didn't find any more high risk after what was initially talked about when we first came to the board. So that was really great news. But the orange is basically a different type of plaster where it's not necessarily a catastrophic failure that we would call it a medium to high risk. It is more of just parts of the plaster might spall off, similar to like Wrigley Field where the concrete was spalling off. Some of these ceiling parts of the plaster would come off the ceiling. It has a risk or a possibility of that happening. So that's why they mandated it pretty much a medium to high risk. And then moving up from that, or moving down from that. So most of the first floor plan was green. We have some of the corridors, which is something that obviously we need to be concerned about as when we start moving into how are we going to do the repairs of that. Swimming pool, which is a larger expanse, that one is going to be somewhat difficult. We've got water and things like that we have to review, and then the wrestling room did have that same ceiling system. Moving up to the second floor, we're very pleased to find out that the auditorium ceiling was not in a high risk or medium to high risk area, so it's something that we can address in more of a relaxed version. Obviously, so we start to get into some of the primary classrooms. Those are the things that we're, again, thinking about when we move forward on the correction part of this. Those are the things that we really want to attack first. We can get into the schedule of the fix later on, but again, a lot of green, which is great. Some of the darker orange, which is some of the primary classrooms on the north side of the school, and then in administration. When we get into the 1909 building, the lighter orange is really a system of multiple ceilings within that ceiling. So we're really thinking, well, it's not really a high risk of spalling concrete here. It's more of, is the system able to carry all the load that it currently has? So those are the things that we'll have to analyze further, and once we start into the fix, we can analyze it even deeper and come up with a solution that we might have to deal with those particular areas. Again, 1909 building saw a lot of that lighter orange. And then this is the third floor, which that red is the only area that we were able to find any of the high risk. That's where the ceiling collapsed initially. So thank goodness there was no other red area in the building. The main competition gym, that one is not to do with plaster. The plaster had already been removed in whatever years, we don't know. But some of the boards that were holding up that plaster were left up there for some reason. And so they are considering that maybe we should tie up those boards or remove those boards. So not a really high risk, obviously that's why it's a lighter green, but something that should be addressed. But it's definitely not going to be as extensive as you might find in the medium to high risk areas.
Now, why is that one room's like really low risk compared to the rooms around it that are high risk?
Which room are you referring to?
In the corner.
Oh, because that ceiling had actually been removed some years back. Their plaster ceiling is no longer there.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
don't know. So then we move on to the fourth floor, and there's really not much concern up on the fourth floor. And it's obviously not very well used, or not used pretty much currently anyway, so. That is the report. All the gray areas are gone, and this is kind of what we see now. So roughly at the end of the day, there's about 3 to 4% of the high risk, about 22 to 25% of the medium to high, 7% medium, and about 60 to 70% of the building is low risk.
I have a question.
Sure.
Kind of with the green area, we're seeing a lot of like different disparities of like the red and to the green. So if we only fix the red and the orange right now because there are like green areas, would that put us kind of in the same position later on where the now green areas would be red or orange later on?
We don't anticipate that. Basically, when we do start going into the corrective work, the thinking is that we'll do some further testing and sounding and making sure the ceiling is solid and will last the duration of even a newer ceiling. So it's just something that we can move on to. It's not necessarily something we want to address right away because we don't feel that it's necessary. But certainly something that we can review as we're going through the repairs to take a more deeper look at.
What, we could probably use some direction from the board. We don't have the, the report that Eric is referring to will be a companion to this that will suggest remediations, in these orange and red areas, what needs to happen. And then obviously, someone has a suggestion and the board feels confident we want to take that suggestion, obviously all kind of work takes time, right? And so we could use a little, I think, discussion tonight and some direction from you as you're thinking, especially on these orange areas. An irony is on this third floor, this orange area where I'm putting the arrow, this is where WJE set up their temporary office. So all of their employees worked out of this, for a good almost 3 weeks, right? So it tells you how they felt about that ceiling. But we could use just a little bit of thinking right now when that, report comes to us, how we receive it, how we begin planning with it, what your feeling is, primarily about these orange areas. What would you say is the scope of work you'd like us to start looking at? Your comfort level as board members. Certainly, I talked to Mr. Boersma, and many of you visited Central. But one of the things that we were talking about, I've stopped here, certainly on the first floor here, the wrestling room and the swimming pool, you could isolate those areas and say, you know what, we'll wait to see if we do, eventually decide you approve a ballot issue. We'll go down the line, we'll see how that happens, but those are areas that we can close off and say, when our current freshmen return to Central from Lincoln Way North, we just won't use those areas. Obviously, hallways, more difficult. It's just not really possible to isolate those two hallways that kind of form that L above Mrs. Croy. It's just not possible to isolate that because obviously you couldn't get into those classrooms. And then, areas like this that that you feel, there's work that you think that that we need to do. So maybe just open it up to board members, your feeling about these orange areas. Obviously, the red areas, we've already demolished the plaster ceilings, we've taken out, that system sitting between Dr. Shaw and Mr. Boersma is the system that was the high-risk system. Very heavy plaster on metal, nailed into wood. So we have that peace of mind, right? That system is gone.
Right, the system you see here has actually had a great adhering technique for the plaster to adhere to the lath. It was the part that failed was from the lath to the structure above. Every 2 feet was a nail, and that's basically what was holding that structure up. So in the 1909 building and other parts of the building, you have that same particular plaster and lath, but it was hung from the structure above by black iron, which was a lot more sturdier than the WJE filth that was not, definitely not in the same situation as this particular system was. The darker orange area, again, is more the plaster and it's the lath that was used. It's interesting that one room over, it's completely different type of system than it was in the high-risk area. So basically, the lath has rusted throughout all the years, and that particular lath didn't have a lot of the voids within it so that the plaster could kind of grab onto that piece of metal. It was more of a flat surface with a little pinhole kind of within that lath. So the plaster wasn't allowed to get really a good grasp on the metal lath. So that is what's failing. It's not the whole system, it's just parts of that plaster is popping off. Like you see in concrete, lots of times when the rebar gets rusted, it pops it off. That's what those systems primarily are, what's occurring with that. So you might see some plaster popping off of that metal lath. The one thing to think about is, and if you toured the building, you've seen it, that there's a lay-in ceiling like this in between, for most part, in between that plaster and the occupied area. So that's a little bit of a buffer. If that plaster would have popped, it would hit that lay-in ceiling before it comes to the occupant area. The locker rooms down below near the pool, that's just exposed plaster that just could pop and fall into that occupied area.
So I'm thinking the darker oranges, even light oranges, they still need to be addressed. I'm thinking, if we're gonna go in, if we're gonna, we might as well address those issues also.
So
That's just my
what is the
opinion.
risk with with that darker orange? You said there were risks of chunks of the plaster falling off?
Correct.
What size chunks, like little pieces or?
You don't know, I can't imagine it being the whole room like it, with the one with the high risk. I can't tell you how much, but, what we've experienced, what we've seen some of that, it could be, I really couldn't tell you how.
So that still has to be analyzed though, correct?
Analyzed, I don't think anybody will be able to predict that, just because it's a, unpredictable, episode. We're really not able to put a actual size of plaster that might pop up.
And then having kids, I wanna make sure they're safe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanna take a chance.
I agree, I think anything that's orange on here, I think we need to remediate in some way, shape, or form, because if it's as heavy as this, even a
Yes.
small piece of it
Yeah.
is too heavy.
It only takes one kid to just go on a dare, chuck a shoe at the ceiling and.
But even, like Dr. McBride was explaining, some of those areas that we can close off, some of those orange areas that, like you mentioned, like the wrestling room.
Right, like, the wrestling room, the pool, right? You might be able to be highly selective, very difficult, as Dr. Green knows, spaces at premium, especially for physical education, right? But those are just, we would obviously, if it's the board's direction or the board thought is, we need to remediate these orange areas, we would do a couple things. One, look at the WJE report, work with Bill Thompson, work with Eric. What are they recommending as remediations? I think in most cases, they're gonna recommend remove that plaster system. As some of you saw in the red rooms, like, Mr. Borisma and Mr. Travis and Dr. Shaw and, Ms. Lopez Kiva, you saw how the plaster system was removed, right? And then a new, more modern, system will come in, that would be likely the fix that I think that they'll recommend. I don't know, I'm not a forensic architect, but what I can imagine, we would then also prioritize, well, where would you start, what would be next? How would you sort of move and sequence through the building to what's last, right?
Yeah, that would be the, next step is, depending on, where the board decides what you want to be remediated, and we start looking into the schedule of things and how long is that going to, take to produce the solutions, the drawings, and then get them out to bid, and then get it corrected. We have taken a look at that schedule of events, to determine that, and based on the new information, it was a little bit more than we had originally anticipated. That might have to be, if we're going to just the orange. With that, we're probably looking at the end of the year just to be able to get our drawings together and then to get it out to bid. So unfortunately, the high-risk area wasn't just the only area that we originally thought that we would have to correct, which we could do in pretty short order. Now we're looking at a larger expanse if we're doing the dark orange. So, yeah, it looks like being able to possibly go out to bid by the beginning of next year. And then from that, go out to bid and then have it constructed and corrected. We could always do that in phases though, and that's something that it will help us expedite getting that started. We don't necessarily have to wait to the whole thing to have the solution put together. We can start segmenting it out to release it to bidding, to get it started, constructed, since the kids aren't in the building anymore. Gives us a lot more flexibility to be able to do something like that.
I'm just gonna clarify, you're talking about calendar year. That's what I was
Yes.
just gonna
Right.
ask. 2023, not
Yeah.
school year.
Not school
Got
year.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah,
yeah.
January
We
1
operate
next
in a
year.
different time.
Yeah,
Right.
right, thank you for that clarification. So, right, I mean, there's a high priority, I would think, could be also the competition gym, that might be something that the district might wanna use pretty soon, so that we could probably get going on that, immediately, and get that thing, the solution out pretty quick.
And with the dark orange areas, and if you're repairing those, does it disrupt the neighboring rooms that are lighter green?
No. That's one good thing. I mean, one thing is that, all the corridor walls isolate. It's a plaster ceiling, so that when they put the plaster up, it didn't go beyond the walls of the rooms. That's what, they go up to the room wall, and that's where they stop. So each room could, just like the high-risk area, when we demoed that, they're just rooms specific. So like that one room up in the corner, which is all green, somebody removed that ceiling, and it didn't affect the other ones.
So, yeah.
Are all the orange parts, are they classrooms? being used?
Summer classrooms, these are, in this particular area, this is a locker room, this is a locker room here. These are all classrooms.
Classrooms,
This
corridors.
is the main office here. This is a conference room, obviously hallway. So there's a mix of different types of rooms on every floor. These are primarily hallways, wrestling room and pool.
It's a second floor, which has all your science rooms are all that.
Right, on this floor, it's all
That floor.
classrooms.
Yeah.
And you almost, if your direction is, for example, to give you, an idea, if you're saying, well, we really were gonna wanna direct you to prepare to remediate, remove those roofs, those ceiling systems. For example, in biology, all of our freshmen take biology. So it really wouldn't be an option to say, well, why don't we bring them in, except for we won't open up those biology classrooms. That would leave a hole in their schedule, and how would they finish their science for the year, right? So that's a real challenge. Just like the hallways, everybody has to go through the hallways. What I think I'm hearing on this issue is that you're pushing us to prepare to, once we get that report from WJE, we see the different kind of remediations, we begin setting a setup that we're gonna address those remediations. And one point of clarification, just, on the orange rooms, these are primarily where there were ceilings where, as Eric described, there seems to be a little corrosion, a little rusting between the plaster and the metal lathe. Just, over time, that contact happens. So the degree to which that creates slippage, very hard to predict, right? It's corroded, you're always gonna have a safe bet if you remove that system and put a more modern system in, right? That's where you're in a very tough position as a board, because you just don't know, right? These are the type of things in a renovation we would be doing, be having lots of conversations about this. But I think, just to kind of get some direction from you, you're leaving us preparing, and Mr. Thompson, to look at that report with an eye of mediating all of those orange areas. That's what I think I'm hearing you say.
Well, it's definitely a safety issue, first and foremost. I guess my question would be, is there a quicker, less costly solution, rather than redoing the entire ceiling and all those orange areas?
We did talk to WJE about that, and we really couldn't come up with anything that was really practical. This seems to be the most efficient way to take care of the problem.
Just because there's a lot factored in with the possible referendum coming up.
Right, I mean, that's, some of this is, gives you a jump start on that. I mean, this was going to have to happen eventually. But I did want to, once you remove a ceiling, it isn't, okay, now we could just put a lay-in ceiling and we move forward. There are going to be, we do have to, as Dr. McBride mentioned, we do have to put a more modern plaster, which we call drywall, because of the fire rating that's required between the occupant area and the attic. And this school does have a wood-structured attic, which requires it to be protected. So we have to do a new drywall system up there that we would give you that fire rating that would be required. As a result of that, we'll have to analyze some of the wood structure. Again, this was all part of our original planning if we did get the referendum passed, but we'd have to review the structure to see if it would be able to hold up the new drywall, and if it doesn't, we have to do some reinforcement of that with trust to be able to make sure that it will be able to meet current code. So there's a process, it's not just removing the ceiling that we're talking about, but we'll have to remove the ceiling and add new drywall, also a new ceiling system that would hold the lights and electrical, systems up there as well.
So just to reiterate, this would have all been part of the referendum plan already?
Yes.
Okay.
The only caveat of that is that we don't have it all, it has not been planned. So we don't know what walls might move or shift. So we're gonna do it as efficient as we can with the system that we're gonna put up in the anticipation of it probably might have to be modified if the referendum is passed. So we've come up with some great ideas. Mr. Thompson had come up with some pretty good ideas about how we might be able to do that to try to save the district some money so that we're not taking something down that we already put up.
On the second floor. On the second floor,
Yes.
that orange that's at the top. So above those rooms is, so is there an issue with the floor above that?
This is.
Cause that's the room, and you got a ceiling, then there's a floor.
Right.
Potentially above it.
Right.
Is there issues there?
Not that we're aware of, but like I said, once we tear down the plaster, we'll be able to look at it a lot better and determine if there are any issues, we would correct those issues.
Cause I think Dr. McBride, in some cases, there were like 5 layers of ceiling.
In this particular area up in the 1928 building, we don't have those multiple ceilings. There's more in the 1909 building that we had multiple ceilings occurring. So I think
The ceilings are high.
Yeah.
Right, the ceilings were originally designed to be very, very high. I think all of you, who visited with Struckman, when you looked up there, the original ceilings, they were all the way up to the plaster, extremely high.
Did we take pictures to show, or is that?
We have plenty of pictures, we don't have any of them loaded up right now, to kind of show those, so.
It seems like we're pretty, like, on the same page when it comes to the decision. I guess like the only question now is, are we going to seal or are we gonna fix the pool and the wrestling room?
No, I think that was, we were gonna close that off.
Yeah.
Well, and what I would,
Are we
Or-
suggesting we close it off just to save time? I just wanted to ask the.
well, what I might say, Mr. Ibarra, is we would probably need time to get the report, right, first and foremost, and see the nitty-gritty of what are the actual recommendations, bring to you, I hope, as soon as possible, a couple of things. One, method of construction. 2, a priority list of what areas first, second, third. 3, how we would bid it out. We still have to do a little bit of work on Mrs. Croy just to make sure what's the scope. In emergency situations, some of the bidding rules that we have in the state are
You can waive them.
you can waive them or set aside. We wanna do the right thing, obviously, and we think there's gonna be some bidding involved in this, right? And then the final thing is kind of walk you through, okay, here's the scope, here's the plan that we've sort of devised, here's the timeline for that plan. So I think there's still a lot, it's hard to answer, well, will we open this or will we close this? It's contingent on so many other moving parts. You probably really couldn't answer that, right now. And I don't know if this is a good time to jump to, we already heard just a little bit about mention of the ballot question that you have a little bit lower in the agenda for approval. And that, is just kind of show on this agenda item what that looks like. And really with this ballot issue, we've done comparables. There's some things you have to fill out if you vote on this that almost looks like you take a second set of minutes, but the question in and of itself, appears here. And,
Okay, I see that.
and you have a copy of it, but maybe pivoting to that, like Eric said, this work would have been done, this kind of investigation of the building and what it needed would have been done, if you vote to go for this bond referendum. Thinking about the discussion section of this, we have done the comparisons, we can talk about the comparisons. I think you're in a very difficult situation as a board, because no matter what, in a space of time, you will have to take students back into Central. And so thinking about that, thinking about, you know, renovation is likely the quickest way, the least costly way to create a building that can continue as a school. And I think that's why you've asked us to explore this in this resolution. So maybe open that up for some conversation too. You know, Eric's also here to talk. You've got sort of what we're looking to renovate and repair versus what the cost of new construction. I think just knowing, you know, having the public know that we've looked into those options. Also, you know, at disposal with companion to this is, you know, we looked last month at what's the cost of $85 million? That's about a, you know, I've got those comparisons of what that actually means, you know, per year for the average household on a 20-year bond versus a 25-year bond. Maybe open this up for conversation and comparison to new construction. And just some of your thoughts. You know, certainly we're gonna vote on this tonight, and
No, I mean, we've been discussing this issue, I mean, as far as Central, we've been discussing it for about a year and a half, and taking tours, doing, you know, coming out with, we know that even if we built a new high school, we'd still have the issue with this campus of Central. What do we do with that, you know? And considering the amount, you know, of new constructions and lots of figures and everything in new construction, I don't feel like putting that tax burden on our community. And it's way this one to help, you know, maintain that Blackbrook Central. I feel like we need to, you know, leave it to our community to decide, you know, how they want Central to move forward.
Yeah, I think we've put different options to the community a number of times. Those have all been voted down. We've never presented this option, so to let the community decide if this is the option they wanna go with.
the question is, you know, the way, and obviously sometimes these ballot questions, I get a lot of, you know, sometimes people say, well, could you get options, you know? Sort of multiple choice referendum, I vote for A, B, and C. That's not the way that it works. Also, sometimes people ask me questions about the language. It does have to correspond to very, very specific legal parameters. And what is presented is exactly what the voters vote on. So whether they vote no or they vote yes, we're constrained by what this, you know, states. You know, the first question, you know, it's almost really a two-part question in the way that it's been prepared. One is should we alter, repair, renovate, and equip that site for the purpose of updating instructional areas and classrooms? So that's a more detailed way of saying, should this site continue as a school? And then it, you know, describes the amount that bonds, loans that the district would say, you know, that the district would issue to fund that, right?
Right.
And the increase, you know, to our budget then, when we would have an annual debt service to that 85 million that we don't have today, right? So now you have this additional cost that you have to pay each year, month, you know, towards that debt service, so the district takes on a new cost. One of the interesting things about a bond issue like this is we, you know, one, as a school district, we're constrained in that, you know, we can only have in fund balances 2.5 times our annual budget. We're nowhere close to that right now. We're not in the saving money to save up $85 million. Taxpayers, I think if we were saving up $85 million, would rightfully feel that, you know, if you're saving all that money, perhaps that's something that I'm gonna challenge, and I think they would be right to do that. We have to go to referendum because anything that's above your debt service threshold, you do have a debt limit, you have to ask the voters for that. Just like if you did new construction, any type of new construction has to go to the voters. So it ultimately becomes a community question. And it's phrased that way, very, very specifically. So I don't know if there's questions about the question itself or thoughts about the strategy. We tried to write a question with attorneys at Chapman and Cutler that reflects the conversation you've had as a board, that reflects the focal points, hopefully you see in there, areas that you want us to focus on, right? You know, we thought things like preservation, replacing and improving the HVAC, major mechanical systems, renovating and updating instructional areas and classrooms, improving accessibility with the Americans with Disability Act. We found that you were very specific about that, increasing access. Any other questions?
I'm just concerned that we're gonna have a bull moose moment where, you know, there are three very prominent, like, opinions when it comes to how we are supposed to proceed, whether it's maintaining, building a new school, or completely overhauling Central. And, you know, unless people are willing to shift from one of those to, you know, decide the fate of the school, I just feel like the referendums are just never gonna pass, because it seems like it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for all of those different groups. I can't really see, like, I don't know.
But we're at the point where we have to give it a shot.
That's right.
One way or another.
Definitely.
Whether it's a new school, or doing Central.
I've always been like.
Something has to happen.
But like I said, this is the least costly for a taxpayer, right? Versus a new school.
You build a new school, you're talking about a whole lot more money.
A lot.
Well, and also, you know, I think one of the really important things, I would probably argue, Mr. Nahr, that maintaining, with all due respect, I think this is the consequence of that strategy, right? That
Which is why
this
I've always
community can expect this, you know, the mission of WJE was to look at ceilings. But it wasn't the mission to look at windows, roofs, boilers, heating and cooling, air conditioners, unit. I mean, you can walk around, and I believe in that what we're doing right now with 1,000 displaced freshmen, the district can expect to see every 3 to 5 years. You know, a year and a half ago, I came before you and said what we're on the verge of, what's on the horizon is some malfunction, I didn't think it'd be a ceiling, that is going to displace, and we don't have the capacity in this building to take 1,000. So those are very costly fits and starts. They're costly emotional to students, they're costly, you know, to teachers, they're costly in dollars, but what I would tell you is I would just ask everybody to pause. You went to a state conference, and what's our brand?
Yes.
I mean, you could answer that, but I can tell you.
You say our brand?
Our brand, what are we known for?
Yeah, I don't like
What we're
that.
known for is not investing in our schools. That's what we're known for. And in a very competitive area where people have lots of choices where they want to live, and lots of choices where to put their children, it's a highly competitive area, right? And I don't think that, you know, soon enough, you know, we have a chance as a community to kind of recapture a high ground. But I agree with you, Mrs. Lopez-Keem, I don't think we want to be known as the community that nearly had a ceiling collapse on kids and then didn't do anything about it. I don't think, but that's our brand today.
Yeah, I don't
right
like
now,
that. I really don't like that.
You know,
So
I
one way or
can-
another, though, we will fix that problem.
Right, you're absolutely right, Mr.
But that's not to say there's not something else in that building.
Right.
Like a boiler.
Like a boiler, that goes out, and that was my always concern, about those two big boilers going out. And then it's like, again, same thing. I mean, we can do the ceilings, repair those and stuff, but then what happens if, like maybe a couple of years down the road, the boiler goes out? You know, it's just another big expense there.
Right.
So, and yes, I feel like I really, if this would have happened during the day, we would have had activities. We really would. I mean, just the whole weight of it and everything. And people, when they say, well, my taxes are gonna go up,
$600 or $700 a year. Don't you think the life of a child is worth that? I mean, don't you think? I mean, you're saying that the life of a child is for that? I just don't see it. I mean, 85 million. When you spread that, it's, I want to say it's nothing. To me, it's nothing, really, when I say the safety of our students.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Right.
just saying that those are comments, that's, I really feel, I mean, that we need to get this building modernized. And I mean, Dr. Shaw and I, we were there at Lincoln Way Central to see, Lincoln Way North, to see the kids' faces come off those buildings and smiles and everything. It's just, I mean, they want to be together. They don't want to be online, they want to be in person. It was very emotional. I mean, even for me, it's emotional for this, because I went to school here for all 4 years. I know. I want to preserve that building.
Right, and you're in a tough spot as a board because time has put you in kind of a difficult place, right?
Yes.
Where it's, and I appreciated when we toured Mr. Boersma, you said, well, people have to decide, right? And they've got to decide, right? And I think that's been your spirit as a board, that it's really people's decision, and putting it before the community and letting the community, we had some public speakers tonight who felt very strongly, about the building, what it means, and renovation of and preservation of the, historic downtown, and putting that before people. That's a decision about their community. It's a difficult spot for you to be in, just because that sort of, clock is ticking on some of our major mechanicals and things like that, right? And you're very empathetic to, to the real costs that people have been talking about tonight too. So it's a tough spot to be in.
It is a tough spot, it really is. But I feel like we should let our community decide,
And I've sensed that's a one, in a practical sense, we have to, right? There's some other strategies. And, the referendum, this question is not just a referendum on dollars and cents, it's a referendum on the building. It's legally written that way. And then obviously it's the best way to survey people and see how they really feel, because you'll know in March, where people are at, and then you'll have, one of a couple of strategies to pick from, right, to move forward.
So are we looking for a motion right now to approve this tentative?
I would say maybe in the approvals, maybe just keep on going with the longest superintendent's report ever. But I just want to make sure if there's any discussion or, anything, we can pick this up, in the approval as well. But just, it's a long document. If there's any questions about the document, you have to certify that everybody was here duly. You have to approve this question as it is, and it's very literal. For example, if we put in the motion, put this before voters on a ballot that looks like this, that we're gonna work on, Americans with Disability Act, we have to show evidence that we've done it, right? If we say that we're gonna preserve the exterior, Veterans Foyer, main gym, we have to do that. So it's not just the money, it's what we're obligating ourselves to do and not to do, right? So just wanna make sure that if there's questions about what this is, we try to fashion this in a way that when we thought we heard you correctly, right, over all this time.
Now, what happens if you put this out, it gets approved, and the bids are less than $85 million? What happens to those extra dollars?
That's a really good question. There's a number of different options. So if the project comes in, that would be wonderful, right? Then you as a board, you have some choices. You have to invest that in real property. You can't just say, oh, we're gonna swing this. It has to go into the assets of the physical assets. And there is some state law that if that exact thing happens, that could be a choice you make. Another choice, there are other choices you can make in terms of abatements, things like that.
Start to
So
pay off the debt.
right, to pay off the debt. Right, so you have lots of options if that was the case. Regrettably, these days, generally there's cost overruns, right?
So what happens if it goes over?
Well, what we try to do is what we talked about on October 16th when Mr. Sickford presented was two things. You asked for a scale back version, we, on October 2nd, gave you the, I think, and I hope I'm not mixing my board meetings up, the 95 to $115 million version. You asked us to go back to the drawing board with DLA. We gave you the scaled back version. But also, we would phase it starting with priorities and then phase out, the last projects would be the projects that we can do if there aren't cost overruns. They're the sort of want projects, I guess I would say, not the absolutely. So if you imagine, we would first start out with HVAC, Americans with Disability, electrical, windows, roofs, general classroom remodeling that would include things like these plaster ceilings. And then if we wanted to get, down the line to an atrium concept in the auditorium, some of the other things like that, we would only get there if we still have funds to do it.
That's correct. We packaged the bidding package so that it could be, here's the base, and then if we have
And then there's
funding
some
available.
alternatives.
Right.
Okay.
To be able to get up to that point where what the district wanted in the first, at the very beginning of this process.
There's also a small amount of, the balance in our construction fund, right? So we do collect impact fees from new developments, and that money has to be spent on real property as well. So there's a little bit of money that we could contribute from there, but it's, it's not 85 million, but, if we're over a couple $100,000, we could cover it internally with that kind of money, so.
This is a 5-year project?
I'm sorry?
This is 5 years potentially?
Could be. Yeah, we haven't had a real sit down, but it could be up to 5 years, 5 to 6 years, just depending. Again, on the priorities, definitely taking care of all the immediate concerns of the mechanical systems and the structure and all of that, make sure it's all ready to go for the remodeling that goes on inside the building.
And one of the things about mechanical systems are, yes, it's good to have efficiency, yes, it's good to be modern, but when you have climate control, when you have those modern efficiencies, you're literally preserving the building. We still have quite a few systems that create tremendous amount of moisture. That hurts windows, that hurts ceilings, that hurts roofs, that hurts masonry. And if you can create a more constant environment inside the building, it actually is a preservation technique, right?
Right, we usually focus on the exterior, make sure it's keeping all that weather outside. Because then, as we all know, water can really deteriorate things pretty quickly, as an example of what's happening with the lath. That's something that we really focus on, tuck pointing. Roofs, as Dr. McBride said, roofs are a high concern for this particular building right now. Mr. Thompson has really been doing his due diligence, trying to keep that roof from completely failing and having water come inside. So good job of doing that, but that's one of the biggest concerns that we have, and would be something that would be the first to be repaired. It's like probably over 20, 30 years old, and definitely needs to be replaced.
The second part of my board report is just any questions about the tax levy. It's an approved, it's a tentative tax levy that you approved tonight. You're not approving the tax levy tonight. Eventually, after, I believe, 4 different meetings we had, starting in September 18th, October 2nd, October 16th, and then November 2nd. So I guess that would be 4 meetings, and I might have missed one in somewhere in there. I think we had a finance and facility meeting. You redirected us. You might remember we started with 4 options. We did the analytics, the PMA analytics on the proposal from citizens to lower the levy flat out by 4.5 million. I know we've heard some citizens, PMA Financial doesn't agree with that assessment. So you as a board, have to make those kind of decisions. Showed you that that projection and where something like dropping the levy right now by 4.5 million, where it would put you in 2029. PMA's projection is you would actually be below the budget that you approved this year in terms of fund balances. Now, certainly you could go that direction. You can get there by debt, you can get there by austerity, right? That's an option. But what you ultimately sent us back as we looked at things was kind of what we called, option 4, I guess, plus, which is you approved the levy as presented. And then you do a debt service abatement in December. You don't do that tonight, you do that in December, which adds into the calculation that the Will County tax assessor is ultimately gonna make on the final levy. There's a final, the abatement, and then there's a final adjustment for new property that goes on as well as some other adjustments. So this is really based on having a balanced budget, maintaining low debt, and then ensuring proper cash reserves. Right now, you're probably in a situation where your cash reserves are going to be, very meaningful for you, in terms of the expense. And that just kind of, indicates the situation that we're in. When you have a building that needs renovation, you've gotta do that. That requires cash reserves, and you can kind of see the cycle, that we're in if we don't have a more permanent address of Central. And that's not even getting into, all buildings are aging, the needs here at East Campus. So discussion, just feedback for us. Did we get it right? We thought that, we were kind of coming back to you with what you wanted to see us come back with, which is the levy as presented and then a debt service abatement.
The consensus was that the board for that option.
Yeah, so the $4.5 million number was brought up. We talked about it. But it puts us at, we're looking at the 5-year projection. If we did the abatement for $4.5 million, it would put us at $57 million in our fund balance.
We can't technically abate more than our debt service payment. So we're limited to the amount we abate. So if we wanted to reduce anything more than our debt payment, our annual debt payment, it would be a direct reduction of the levy. And that direct reduction is the model we showed where it kind of compounds because we can't get it back. The abatement piece we can get back. So.
But as our debt goes up, if we have higher debt, can we abate more?
Correct. In theory, if the referendum passes, right, if we put the question on the ballot, if the board approves that resolution tonight, and then the voters approve it later, now we have a bigger debt amount, or bigger debt payment annually, and in theory, that you could make a decision every year, it's the board's decision every year, every December, whether they want to abate part of that debt service back to the taxpayers, so you could totally do that.
So right
yes.
now, we're limited, since we have been so good in our debt management, our debt is low, we're gonna
Right,
abate
we have very
back what
little
our
debt right
payment
now.
will be.
That's what I'm
However,
getting
if we do approve the referendum, we can give more back to the taxpayers.
Correct.
I know it sounds weird.
Right.
It is, it just gives you a
And we're not
margin that
both
you
yet.
can bait back. It gives you a portion of your budget that you can swing over instead of bonded interest, you can swing it over to, you'll fulfill it by your operations, right? And this is, like we said, we got the feedback on September 18th, and so what we did is with PMA Financial, we said, well, let's run this scenario. Like Mrs. Croy said, we don't have enough debt service to abate back $4.5 million. So the only way that we could do that would be to lower the levy by $4.5 million. Also, there's something called recapture. We don't think next year we're gonna be able to recapture because we believe next year, actually, the consumer price index will be low, and the consumer price index trumps any kind of recapture you might want to do, so we don't think that would be realistic. So this is the projection out. If we just lowered the levy by $4.5 million, this is what over time, would be the impact, right, of kind of where you're going. So if you get to 2029, and this presumes no change in strategy, right? You just reduce the levy by $4.5 million and then let things naturally ride out. You don't go for an ed fund referendum. You don't change your levy. This also makes some presumptions about what the consumer price index is going to be. And you can kind of see the downward decline. And fund balances are not, that's not extra cash. That's not in excess. Fund balance is what we use to fund everything. It's the cash reserves, our budget every year, our debt service, right? It's not an extra. Sometimes folks have thought of or presented that they think of fund balances as extra. The budget's over here, and the fund balances are over here. Our fund balances are really what, it's a whole thing. And so, very quickly under this proposal in 2027, 2028, you'd be approaching below what you've approved this year as a budget. So you'd have budget shortfalls. And we know we've had citizens do analytics, we've had, these analytics, right? These are the ones that we're presenting to you that, I don't know, Mrs. Croy, if you've, I almost just cut you off, I think.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So other municipalities and school districts do handle tax levy abatements differently, right? Obviously, it was brought up that I live in New Lenox. I do not live in Lockport, so my tax bill is from New Lenox. New Lenox does abate property taxes back to their taxpayers, but they don't use the abatement process. They make taxpayers apply and provide proper copies of their bills, and then they have someone in their office process those rebate checks, right? And they are able to do that because of other taxes the municipality collects. So they abate back their portion to the taxpayers, so they rebate it. They don't actually abate it. Like I said, they don't use the abatement process. They rebate it back to their taxpayers. And you have to apply, like I said, you have to apply for it, you have to provide all your information, you have to prove that you've paid your taxes, all that stuff. Then they have someone in their office do that. So there are other options for people to refund, and I know other school districts have done that too. That's a very heavy administrative lift, and that is an option, but I'd probably need to hire someone to do it. So it's just throwing that out there so that I can respond to that. So there are other options. The abatement is what I would recommend, however, because it's in the best interest of the district, right? As I say that, and as we've talked a lot about Central, we're gonna have to, the board's gonna have to approve a amended budget this year. Because the rule is that if you have a change in estimated expenses of greater than 10%, in any major area of the budget, you're supposed to amend the budget. So come spring, I will be bringing a tentative amended budget to the board and then a final amended budget. It's very likely that that budget will not be balanced because we won't have the revenue to cover some of these expenses that we're incurring with this Central situation. So that's just no matter what the board decides on this levy.
So
that's just another
that's where
piece
the
of
role of
information.
cash reserves come in. Would
Right.
be in excess, in terms of revenue, tax revenue, a shortfall likely. And what this does, this is the, later, this is really what we're proposing is the tentative. It's not as great an increase without the abatement. It's not as great of a decrease with a $4.5 million lowering of the levy. It's a far flatter line, and but it just keeps things steady, right? Slower growth of your fund balances if you go to an abatement strategy every year. So what it does in some ways is it creates property tax relief, but rather than doing it all at one time, it does it slowly over time. It probably isn't accurate to say that it discounts the levy, but discount is a word that we all understand, right? That's probably not accurate from the knowledge base that Mrs. Croy has, but it slowly discounts over time. It's a more gradual process, and it flattens out the growth of your fund balances while still maintaining them above your current budget.
Yeah, it's similar to a discount, though. It makes sense from a way to understand it, and because of, you look at a receipt when you buy something at a store and it's got a discount on it, the net that you're paying it's the same thing you'd see on the tax bill. You'd see the net, so it's similar to that.
What was the other option you didn't suggest, but you mentioned it, the rebate you said?
Right, that's what I'm saying. So the Village of New Lenox passes a regular tax levy, just like we're proposing here, right? They'll pass the maximum and then they'll rebate it back. So you have to pay it, and then a year later, you have to apply to get it back.
And that's the village, that's not the school
And that's
district.
the village, that's not the school district, right? That's the Village of New Lenox.
I think what the person talked about earlier is Union District. which only has, they feel like 100 kids.
Yeah, Union District's not a great
Yeah,
comparison to
and
us, it's too
So,
small.
and they got all that,
They got
those
all
warehouses out there, so
Yeah.
they get way more money than they need, so that's why they do what they do.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I did a little investigation, Union has about 100 students, it's K
Right.
through 8. And likely can satisfy its entire budget through grants.
Right.
But as we all know, grants, we don't find out until September or October if those grants come through. So what Union does is Union has to levy the full amount, right? Because they can't count on those grants coming in exactly the way they come in. And then when those grants come in, then they can strategically, abate back. But one comparison with that school district that was mentioned is, right now, the state has them, 200% is their adequacy level. So in essence, they're operating 100%, bless you, 100% above what the state says is adequate. Our adequacy level is a much larger district, it's 85%, so we're operating 15% below what the state says that we should be operating in terms of services, personnel. That's an estimate by the state of Illinois based on information that, they gather from, our students, our population, the services that we should be providing. So the comparison I would make is other large township high school districts, Lyons Township, Evanston, Oak Park River Forest, Downers Grove North and South. Of similar size, I think is a better comparable. So that is, I think my report, a lot there to take in. And certainly when we get to those approval items, they're pretty heady approval items. Obviously, we can bring that back up, but thought this would be a good place to have. Eric Sickbird, and I was talking with Mr. Borsma earlier, you can probably see how these are all interrelated. These all have a relationship right now to each other, and maybe just packaging that together. So that's my report. I don't know if you need a break or move on. Or.
All right, yes, before we start on our information reports, yes, we could probably do a break.
You are the president,
Okay.
Okay, great.
We're ready to proceed. Okay, we'll start with our information reports, curriculum report.
Well, we had a feeling that we would be at this point in the meeting with a lot of conversations, so what we were thinking of doing is, testing English language learners. Dr. Huntington and Dr. Christopher are here. If there's any questions on these reports, we can go ahead and have them come on up. If there are no questions, they just submit it really to update you on the PSAT. Huge effort, lots of partners to thank, both in school, and then we had to also do all the work at our feeder schools this year because the PSAT is online. So just a ton of people to thank, Doris Fleckenstein, Jennifer Webray, Jason Oswald, Josh Oster, and Matt Dusterhoff, especially Dr. Christopher. She was the ambassador of goodness to all of our feeder districts who suddenly realized they couldn't come to us to take it because of the digital format. And then just English language learners. We're just seeing more and more newcomers. That is real. And just how, a couple of our staff members are doing in that regard. So, any questions this evening?
All right. Principal reports.
Same with the principals, we've got the report, discipline, all the way to wrapping up sports. We've got Dr. Green is here, Dr. Greenan is here, happy to stand up, answer any questions you have about what's going on, what you've heard, what you wanna know from them.
I have a question. Is attendance better or worse, since we've gotten to North?
I've only had first couple days. We've had really good attendance. I can give you a better picture, in a couple weeks. But they are coming and they're showing up.
Better?
Yeah, it's about the same. It's about the same.
Academy attendance is improved.
What's that, Academy attendance has improved?
Really?
Yeah.
Kids really like the new space.
That's
That's nice.
surprising.
We aim to please.
Anything, Dr. Greenan, you wanna highlight, just comes to mind, anything that we're gonna leave behind and you're gonna be sad that we didn't highlight it tonight?
Nothing other than just really wanted to restate some of the comments that were mentioned earlier. I think it's important to recognize, number one, again, just the blessing, Lincoln Way. Their school district has just been just such a tremendous help to us, to put it lightly. So, and then once that approval took place, the weight of the work that has been done between both campuses to make it happen at Lincoln Way North within a short amount of time, it's amazing, but also it doesn't surprise me though too, as I've said to a few people, just because being here for 22 years and knowing the people that make up our school district, it's a group of people who really, they step up for our kids. So it's been a humbling and also very, very proud time. And I'm just very happy that the freshmen are able to have in-person learning.
And one of the things that has been great is, yes, the freshmen, we've displaced them, we've moved them to Lincoln Way North. But by having that space, we've allowed our sophomores, juniors, and seniors to, maintain and continue on their path and not disrupt their learning process at all, which has been huge. Because without that space at Lincoln Way North, some of our alternatives really would overturn the apple cart for everyone.
Right, really our only alternative would be split schedules. That'd be, then, 5-hour days for everybody.
I know there was an initial concern about the walkers. Has there been any missed?
Not really, our chief, our two administrators who are at Central Campus who walk, Tony Kandari and Angela Adolph, I think they've gotten to know about 70 people, 70 students who walk and go, they take a Lincoln Way North Express. Where it feels a little bit like we're operating the, busing system, and we've got, Lockport East Local, Lincoln Way East Express, change for the Lockport, East Local to the Lincoln Way North Express. So they've been out there doing well.
Yeah, super happy to be there.
I don't want to say something out loud because you know how it is, you jinx it, but actually some of the buses are running early. So unbelievably, I don't know what's going on here, you know? Yeah, so let's not even talk about that. And I just wanted, before we, change from this, just kind of cool, last Thursday night, we had 200 new members of National Honor Society, that's a huge group. And then, kind of neat, you know, our robotics team is currently ranked 3rd in the state of Illinois. So that, you know, and then, you know, just a shout out to Mike Dwyer, really an excellent athletic director, and if you just look at the list of accomplishments in all the programs this fall, really amazing, really incredible. And that happens through coaches, through athletic director. Another information report, just we have some, you know, we always want to let the board know when our students are on their way. Mr. Roth will be going to the Dan Gable Donnybrook next week for girls wrestling, which is just a sport that is taking off in this state. Another one, Walsh Jesuit High School, that's a little bit later in December. Some Skills USA construction event, getting students there. And then a boys wrestling, Dan Gable Donnybrook boys version of that. Same event. Maintenance reports there for your review. You know, just so much, you know, going on. I think Mr. Thompson, he's here to answer any questions that you might have. A good amount of it, we've just talked about a lot of the nitty-gritty of going to Lincoln Way North from a custodial and janitorial point of view. You know, I thought, you know, you talked about the grounds department, custodial department, you know, and at one time they didn't want to say this isn't my job, they just asked what can we do to help, and, you know, when staff really takes that approach, I would just use this to say that, you know, having your own staff, these are your employees, maintenance, grounds, custodial, is just so important. It builds a sort of sense of mission and focus on that aspect of running a school that I just don't think you can replace any other way. Chuck Welke, Bill's counterpart at Lincoln Way, has been fabulous. And then in all of this, we hosted Christmas Crossroads. You know, it happened, and we expanded the gym, and that seemed to decompress the system. Right? We hope, you know, Lockport Women's Club, we'd love to see them shine, and hopefully it was a good event for everybody, and we were a great host.
I did, I worked on it on Sundays, and I was talking to Dr. Huntington about, because I believe they were selling their coffee common grounds there for our vendors or crafters, people that came in, but yes, it was very busy.
They also had the Port of Pride store open.
Oh, yes, no,
during
I don't
Christmas.
think the Port of Pride store was not
Oh, they
open.
were supposed to be, at least on one day,
But
one or
they
2
did
days.
have the lights on, so people still.
Yeah.
looked, but-
And then you can see the usual thing, rigging system, the auditorium, field house window, finishing up the A field, replace fire alarm, central campus. Good time to do that, right? Because you can take the fire alarm offline right now.
I have a question about the students at North. I know they finish around like 1 hour earlier. How does that work with like our qualifications of a school day? Does it interfere with anything?
School day has to be a minimum associate of 5 hours. So they're over that 5 hour, but they're under the 7 hours we typically do, so that, you know, we can work them into the day with our busing. So they meet, they have shorter periods. I'm sure those class periods go very quickly, and the school day, Dr. Green told me, goes very quickly. But that is so that we can do busing here at East Campus.
And they also don't have delayed starts on Wednesdays.
They don't have late start on Wednesday to keep kind of instructional time as well.
Can I ask why it's 5 hours? Why the state minimum is 5 hours?
I don't know the history of that, but that has been the state minimum design since I've been in education. I can't remember a time that it wasn't, so I don't know. Generally, things like that, you know, the history of Illinois relate to our sort of agrarian nature as you know, primarily a farming state, right? And I'm sure if we really go back to it, it was to get kids in school, but also get kids home, you know, to contribute to their families. So that's my guess. I don't have any information. Any questions for Mr. Thompson? All right, those are our reports.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, do I have a motion then to approve the consent agenda items 2 through 7?
So moved.
Second.
It's been
been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Mr. Travis. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none. Roll call.
Navarro,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve the course proposals and course name changes for the 2024-2025 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Shaw and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, roll call.
Travis,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement for mutual assistance post-crisis?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Mr. Travis. Are there any questions?
If I could just make a point of mention, I have highlighted this in your weekly update, but not so much the board table. In essence, in light of what happened at Highland Park in Deerfield, we realized, and this could have been, you know, something that when we had the crisis at Central, we wanted to have an architecture that if you had something in school place violence, an explosion at a school, a fire at a school, 5 of our, and in LASIK, our center schools, this is just an agreement that already puts in place the architecture to provide mutual aid. For example, we have something that could be very assistive. We have, 60-some buses that, if we had to move, one of our elementary feeder districts because of a fire, a calamity, school place, violence, we could provide that assistance. And how we provide that assistance is all worked out, in that agreement. Or similarly, we might have needed, assistance in a situation. Let's say we couldn't get our buses back, we wanted to leave the building in Central. Where would we go? Well, Taft, Milne, Calvin, Grove, close by, right? So sorry to interrupt the vote.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Okay, roll call.
Boersma,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the 2-year lease for the 2 14-passenger activity buses?
Make that motion.
I can second that. Are there any questions? All right. It's been motioned by Mr. Travis, second by Ms. Lopez Caniva. All right, roll call.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the intergovernmental lease agreement with Lincoln Way Community High School District Number 210?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shimon Rogers and second by Mr. Travis. I'll do this a few times. All right, roll call.
Shaw,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposed issuing of school bonds to the voters of the district at the general primary election to be held on the 19th day of March 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Dr. Shaw and second by Mr. Travis. Roll call.
Johnson,
Yes.
Navarro,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing request to intervene?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Mr. Travis and second by Dr. Shimon Rogers. Roll call.
Navarro,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Boersma,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. All right, there's no policy updates.
We have to approve the incentive tax levy.
The tentative tax.
Thank you, yes. Need a motion for the approval of tentative tax levy for the 2023 calendar year.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Mr. Travis and seconded by Dr. Shaw. Roll call.
Shaw,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Shimon Rogers,
Yes.
Boersma,
Before I vote on this, I just wanna say, I think I've done my homework on this. As much as I can, I'm going to continue to do so. But I'm going to vote yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Navarro,
No, because I still intend to keep my political promise when I was elected to not.
Lopez Caniva.
Yes. Okay. Motion passes. All right. And then, policy updates, none.
I see a very, or we actually do have like a press 113.
Oh, you.
We haven't brought it to you because you've got a lot going on, so.
Okay. All right. Is there a time frame on those policy updates?
In this particular one, a lot of them are administrative, so they're not immediate compliance. So, you know, obviously if they're immediate compliance, we bring them to you so you can go over them. So a lot of right now, we're kind of in a very sort of sprucing up things in 5-year annual reviews.
All right. All right. Announcements.
Yeah, very quickly, Thanksgiving break, happy Thanksgiving, everybody, thankful for all of you. And then I just put some other events, annual veterans celebration, I have a family wedding that evening, I never like to miss this, but I just recommend everybody in the room be here. It's a great event, just such an amazing celebration of veterans. Madrigal dinner, please, if you're board members and you're interested in going to Madrigal dinner, please let us know, we can assist you in getting tickets. Nutcracker performances, that's the foundation, kind of a cool thing, to have a professional, ballet company is gonna come, use East Campus as part of a fundraiser for LTHS Foundation, kind of neat thing to bring your family to. Holiday music concerts, December 14th, that's always a great concert. And then we are back here Monday, December 18th for the last board meeting of 2023, best of our knowledge.
Let's try and keep that to it.
Let's try to keep that. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Second.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shimon Rogers and second by Mr. Travis. All in favor?
Yeah.
It's 9:46.
Okay, there's